And then I also started like Flock Rebel at that time, which was like the clothing line.
Yeah. And we're going to dive into that a little bit.
Yeah. So that's kind of like what brought me back.
Speaking of bringing back.
Yeah.
I got a shout out to Will Maker for bringing me back too. Because when I had this idea for a podcast, I think there's a couple people I told about it, and then when I started it, I remember I was doing production, and I was doing production with just random people that was getting on Upwork or Fiverr, and I reached out to Will Maker, and I was like, "Yo, I know you ain't doing anything." Wait, was you doing something at the time?
I actually had not been doing stuff for a few years.
Yeah, so he was you was stagnant too, right?
Well, like 9 months earlier, a good friend from my job that I work with, Daniel, was talking to me about getting back into music. And at that time, he did alternative music. I listen to alternative music. I listen to a lot of things, but I don't particularly do alternative music. And I told him, I go, you know what kind of music I do, right? And he goes, yeah. And I was like, yeah, sure. I go, let's go ahead and collab. And that was basically the start of me getting back into things. Because as soon as I started doing music with him, you reached out to me, wanted a beat. And I was like, all right, I got you.
Serendipity. I feel like we all kind of got back into things around the same time. And then
there's something about that.
So did I hit you up for the beat first, or did I just do the vocals first?
Yep. Which one of those beats is actually going to be the lead single to my album?
And one of them beats are on my next project.
Yep.
So that blessed a lot of us, brother.
Because the first
we got your leftovers, but you know.
But he came up with a bunch of beats, and then I think I challenged him. I was like, "Yo, so I need you to come up with Afro beats with a hip hop feel to it." And he goes, "I ain't never did no Afro beats before." Do you remember that?
That conversation? Still to this day, there's only 2 Afro beats I did, and one of them is the theme to the podcast.
He was able to channel his 5%, 4%.
Yeah, 5%.
Man,
5%.
I'm just mixed up, man.
He went deep to channel them ancestors,
and he came over with his beat, and I was like, "Yo, that's the one right there." And then I use it. People still compliment that beat to this day. And I was like, "Yo."
Dope.
I was like, "Where'd you get that beat from?" I was like, and I think you got a couple people from other podcasts who want you to do a beat because of it.
Yeah, Baddies Mean Business. That's one of them.
Yeah, and there was 2 other people that hit me up, and I think I was like, "Yeah, I sent them the information. Hopefully they reach out." But yeah, and then I remember after you did the beat, then I came back to you like, "Yo, I'm not fully sold on these mixes. And if there's anybody I know who can mix my voice the way I want it to be, it's you. Can I get you out of retirement to mix just like it'll only be a couple of hours."
And we know you're convincing, so I know. You're gonna get my retirement. I know you can.
And here we are.
Thank God you did.
Here we are. Like I don't know if he was sold the first time around, but he came around to it.
Hey, be creative. I'm all game.
That's what's up. That's what's up for real.
We all got out of retirement, so I'm glad it all happened. So the project. Tell me about what you and Will Maker been cooking up on this project.
So what's going on was just like interesting. So it was like we took the first project, as far as we started with the tracks that we had from way back.
Yeah.
And him being the perfectionist that he is, he was like,
he's a perfectionist.
Yeah, we gotta redo this. We gotta redo this.
Dude, he would I'll have to fix something on the podcast, and I'll tell him to fix one thing. I'm gonna redo the whole vocals. I'm gonna redo all the vocals. And
I know that's real, because that's how it's like. And I like that because it brings like the best out of you. And it's good to have someone that kind of push you to do more of what you can. It's just like someone having that faith. So that's I like that aspect. It's annoying sometimes though.
It's beautiful. I like it. Because
it's a beautiful problem,
but it's like one of those things. Like I was like, damn, Tony, I only got but so much time in the day. I gotta run a business at the end of the day, so we need to figure out how much I want to spend on that so I can do this.
Right. Hey, I wish I wasn't like this.
But it's crazy though, because like, yeah, it's just it pushed me, it pushed me. And then we start playing around with the concept, because when I do a project, I look at each project kind of like a piece of art. So when you hear me on something, it's not going to be a consistent like, oh, this is the stuff that he does.
Mm-hmm.
But when I hear the production, it takes me in certain directions, and then I make that piece of art for that project.
Mm-hmm.
So for What's Going On, I was trying to do a lot of stuff. I wanted to kind of honor the two areas of music that really like made me who I am, growing up with the music from the 60s and 70s from my mom, but then also like the early 90s hip hop that really got me into being an artist. So with What's Going On, it's like we kind of meshed that together. We wanted to have a more 90s hip hop feel.
Mm-hmm.
We took all the songs from What's Going On. He made tracks from them, beats for them. And then we made songs with each one.
Mm-hmm.
Now, also subject-wise, at the time when I started getting back into music, I listened to I was trying to expand my palette. So I know a lot about, R&B and rock from the 50s up until beyond. I have a pretty big palette of music for those genres. I started getting more into jazz. I'm not really big into jazz, but I started getting more into that to where I have more knowledge now. But I had like a big hole in my American music knowledge from like blues, from like Americana, from folk.
Yeah.
And so I started at the time that I started writing for this project, I started listening to blues. I started listening to like folk music. And what I loved about it was like, the stories, and stories that like in hip hop, a lot of times we come from like, whether we're telling the truth or not, we're coming from our own personal first person perspective. That's how we talk,
and
like
it's
it's us.
our truth.
Exactly. That's what it's supposed to be, But what I loved about like folk and blues, it comes from the same type of working class, lower income perspectives in general, not always, but in general. But it's not first person. So it's like there's a lot of times telling stories, and sometimes it is, but a lot of times they're just telling stories of people. So when I started writing this, I went through, my mind and just things that I've seen, things that I've observed. And I made most tracks were just songs about experiences, people trying to change their life after jail, families that got destroyed because of war, drug addiction, prostitution. There are a couple of stories that are based off of my life, but most of it is just like, as far as like going through things that have happened to people that people have to deal with. And I felt that was also in the vein of What's Going On. So that's kind of what I meshed together.
Like when I hear you talk about it, I even think about earlier in the interview when you're talking about the parallels of your life, of you experience all these tragedies back after losing somebody. And I was like, there's like a double entendre to me going on in my mind with this project, because like what's going on is like in third person, what's going on with you when you went through these different revelations in life.
So true.
And then also parallel talking to the story that you're trying to give to people. But what I want to ask you is, with this project, what are you hoping people get out of this project? And
for me, like, what I hope that people get is just like, I hope they get the ideal that no matter what we go through in life, we can be more. Because I think that so much in life, we give up on ourselves. And when I see, for instance, how long I stayed away from publicly doing creative stuff, in a sense, it was like me giving up on myself in a sense. And it never turns out good. I'm pretty sure that like, if I didn't take that hiatus, and everything happens for a reason, but if I didn't take that hiatus, my personal life would have been a little bit better, because the things that bring you joy rejuvenate you. And when you take that out and you're just doing a lot of stuff just to survive or just to, because you're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of that joy out of life. So that's what I want people to get.
Yeah, and I think when me and Will Maker hook back up, that's a lot of the conversations that we have that are centered or based around that. Because when I conformed and I gave up all the creative aspects and outlets and went down this path, a big piece of my soul was missing, right?
And I get that.
And I just started doing the family stuff, and I dedicated to family stuff. But there's a big piece of my soul that's missing. I mean, family fills a good void of happiness, but doesn't feel that piece that's missing.
Exactly.
And then once I reintroduced that life, and then even though my wife didn't understand it at first, she began to understand, oh, this is a piece that's missing. And then, when she realized that it was a thing that I needed, she came and I learned how to create and monetize around it. It's like, okay, you can't have this not be missing from your life. You need to go pursue. This needs to be a part of it.
Right.
We'll figure it out. But this needs to be a part of you. We'll figure it out.
Right? I love that.
And we made some sacrifices up and down before I became a little bit. I wouldn't say I'm completely successful, but more successful than I was in the first back.
Go on the path of the success. How I feel about it, man, just going on that path. Because like when you have a vision in your head, right? It's like you're stepping on faith.
Yeah.
Like, you see something that no one else can see because I was going to say in your head, right?
Yeah.
And like just trusting yourself and having faith to step on that path. I think that's a success. Everything else, the cherry on top, know, and you got the cherry because you making it. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think also knowing when to pivot too, because like I had this vision,
point.
But don't be so set and stubborn in my ways that I'm not willing to pivot when I need to pivot. Like,
great point.
Like there's times when we'll make us like, y'all, you need to put a storyline in there in these podcasts.
Yeah.
You need to do this. It's like, you know what? All right, yeah, you're right. How do I make this happen? How do I prioritize this over this? And then I can start to see success fruit in this way, right?
So true.
Because sometimes you get resistant because you get stuck in your ways. Like, I don't have any more time to do this.
Right.
Like, this is all I got, and we're gonna make it work. We're just gonna be consistent. But knowing how to take those things to pivot so that you can hit success.
I love that.
Because we were talking about 90s hip hop. So I'd be remiss because we all, you, Will Make, we from that era.
Yeah.
And I look at hip hop as eras, right? Like there's the 90s era, there's the era before us, and there's this era that we in now. This is gonna be the hot take. Big three.
Hey, no matter what you say, but I got your back.
Kendrick Lamar, Drake, J. Cole, this whole rollout thing. Back in our era, hip hop, echelons and beefs.
Yeah.
I feel like 90s, we got a certain way we like to see it happen. I've had some off-camera conversations with Will Baker.
Yeah.
What's your take on it? Like, how do you feel this era is when it comes to the like? For me, it's like,
I put it like this.
How we doing it?
I put it like this. I think the big three are court jesters. And Nas is still the king.
Oh!
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Oh!
No disrespect, but like, to me, I don't know. It just seems.
But
I don't think it's fabricated.
Nas considered the king of our era, though. Like, or one of. So, like, in our era, we was talking about Jay-Z, Biggie, and Nas, right?
Yeah.
And then, like, if you're West Coast, Tupac is in there too, right? That's our era.
Yeah. Well, I'm rest in peace, Tupac. I'll just put it like that.
We'll make. I'm gonna throw Will back in. What's your whole take on the big three? Like, are you rocking with the Nas thing? What's your take on it?
I mean, I like new blood. Like, personally, you know, I don't think we need apologies because it is hip hop. So I don't think people should be taking offense to it.
Right.
And when you're battling, you're battling. You know, that's just what it comes down to.
But it's really a battle.
Like it.
Is it really a battle?
It's really a battle.
I mean, it's, I guess, a battle of, you know,
words.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not with the AI one, so that one kind of could, you know.
Sounds like you died with the AI one or the apology. So you okay with the apology? Well, you don't even care. You just like, nah.
Well, to me, like, I look at it like this. I'd rather, like, it's a stronger stance not to do something than to come back and apologize, you know, specifically hip hop. Like, okay, I'll put it out there. I'll put it like this. J. Cole talked too much mess to be apologizing when he actually get a chance to prove what he's been saying all these years. That's all I'm saying about that. That's my personal feel on that.
I mean, the thing is you got like Jay doing Super Ugly. And if him and Nas could be friends after that, like in hip hop, like everything is game.
Right.
You know,
but did they get to the level Super Ugly? Like this is like that's exactly kumbaya, my lord.
That's exactly what I'm referring to. Like there shouldn't be. There's no necessity for apology, especially when I'm sure that he got his number. He could text him. You don't even got to DM him. You could probably text him.
I had a friend that had a perspective that he liked as far as like what J. Cole's doing as far as being an example, you know, for Black men. Right. So, you know, you can make a mistake or something that you don't think is the best thing for you to do and publicly, you know, reel it back because you feel that's you stay on your bigger square.
So does that, go ahead.
I can see it from that perspective.
But so is that saying our level of version of hip hop, our era is immature and we need to mature into this new cognac or fine wine version of hip hop era?
I just think the difference is that, like, and it's even for my personal, you know, it's like there has to be, I think the problem is when you have beef without real animosity. Like, I think in our era, when people were beefing, they had some real animosity, at least for what we perceive as being real animosity.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of like you're not going to apologize, you know, when you're fighting a war. And you might make a peace treaty later on, but in the war, you're not going to apologize. Mm-hmm. I think the reason why they can go back and forth the way they can, because it's like, it's really not that serious. Like, it's just a weird, it's weird for them to even be battling in the first place because it's really not that like serious, you know?
I mean, to be completely honest, they probably just got thrown into this. People just wanted something to talk about.
So then if that's the case, are we talking about the industry is controlling this and it's not even, it's manufactured, it's not even real?
It still comes down to individuals doing it. Like, that's the way I kind of look at it. You know, like you make the conscious choice to make this song. You made the conscious choice to use AI, which I'm like, bro, come on.
Well, if the industry is controlling it, then maybe you did make the conscious choice. Maybe the conscious choice was...
Well, that to me is not the strongest point of view, and that to me would not win a battle. So,
because there's also
and don't get me wrong, I like him too. I like Drake, you know, but like to use AI, I mean, I can understand from your perspective. And the thing is like, honestly, if you're gonna put stuff out there anyways, we're all just supposed to be entertained as listeners.
Right.
So that's really what it comes down to.
And that's a whole different type of rollout.
And that's why, like, for me, I don't think it's necessarily that you need an apology. Just because of the simple fact, like, if you put it out there, it's meant for everybody to be entertained by. That's just the way I kind of see it, you know?
And this AI generation we didn't have AI before. So this is a whole new thing. So this is
a whole new thing.
It's a whole new thing. Like if we had access to AI before, would we have seen the AI rollout in the 90s? I don't know.
Why do you gotta put Tupac in it? Like, what do he have to do with this? Like, it just like...
Well, the Tupac thing is a reference because the whole play on Kendrick saying that he saw Tupac come to him and speak to him in a dream back in the day, and he crowned Kendrick the new king of LA, and so that's why they put,
a guy from New York who lived in Oakland.
You write a verse that Tupac would write. Like, I don't know.
So that's why that's how that guy is in there because it's kind of him playing off what Kendrick said about his dream with Tupac and da-da-da. And so he's trolling them in that way. And
I mean,
I'm not mad at that troll. That's like, oh, that's clever.
That's a clever way. That is clever.
That's a very artistic and creative way to.
That is clever.
I mean, it's a way to use like tools nowadays.
Yeah.
I think Kenny to sit down though, like so sometimes these short people have the Napoleon complex. Like, get your high chair, sit down, give them a popsicle. No. Like I wish they all, wish them the best. I know they're gonna get past this, and it's not gonna be serious because it just don't seem like it's gonna be serious
at all. But I do want to see some.
But isn't that part of
good sportsmanship?
But isn't that part of why it doesn't feel the same way that it used to? Because we know from the beginning it's not that serious.
Yeah.
Like when back in the day, like. Just using the Super Ugly example, when Nas and Jay-Z were going at it, you knew that they did not like each other in that moment in time.
Yeah.
So that's like the stakes are higher.
And if things if either one of them ran across each other, things were gonna pop off.
Right. And it's like if I feel you're just doing it just like, for fun, it's like it's hard for me to get invested because you're not invested. Yeah. And I think that's to me where I stand with it. It's hard for me to get invested in something that I don't feel is real.
Yeah.
And I love J. Cole. Drake is phenomenal to me. I don't know why everybody
all good.
Everybody hates Drake. It's like everybody hates Chris. I don't know why people talk so much about Drake. And Kendrick is good.
Maybe because he's Canadian. I don't know.
Yeah, they're like, man, we could talk about him. Canadians are nice people. We could get away with this.
I knew he was going to get a hot take off of that one. All right, let's transition to Flock Rebel.
Okay, definitely.
How did that come to be?
So, one thing that's been fairly consistent through most of my life has been a love for the finer things. Thank you, brother. Thank you. And it started as a kid. I was that kid that would go through like the Macy catalogs and, those house magazines you get for free when you see the big mansions and stuff like that. I always had a penchant for like the finer things, which sometimes got me in trouble. But when it came to clothes, I had a specific way that I liked to wear clothes. I had specific things I was into. And I never really thought of like really getting into clothes as far as like making or designing them. I just always loved fashion. I mean, I was that kid that like, people would hate to go to the store with me because like I would take hours looking for just that perfect shirt. 3 hours and I'm just buying one thing, So I was that dude, so that was my thing. And when I came back, my biggest thing after the podcast experience with MYO and starting what's going on, it was just kind of like, why not do anything that I wanted to do? Like, why limit myself, right? Mm-hmm. So when I thought about like, starting Flock Rebel, I just started thinking about like the things that influenced me, fashion wise, but then also like ideal wise. Mm-hmm. So the concept behind Flock Rebel, even the name, Flock Rebel going against the grain. Yeah. I started out thinking about being a black sheep. Yeah. And then a black sheep would be like different than all the sheep that kind of follow along the grain. So it's like, but then if you have like a flock of black sheep, you have people who are rebelling against the normal grain, right? Yeah. So style-wise, I was into like streetwear fashion, just primarily because I loved how, at least the aspects that I was into, how it had aspects of like, hip hop. It had aspects of that. But also I love the fact, I guess I'll go back. How I got introduced to streetwear fashion was from like homies from Japan. From Japan. Okay. Like there used to be in downtown, I guess more like Little Italy. Yeah. Back in the day, there used to be this place where a lot of foreign exchange students would live. And a lot of Japanese, Brazilian, and, some people from like West Africa. And so, being a young single man and, just wanting to be social, it's like I've met a couple people from there and I started like hanging there. They would have like these parties in the parking lot. So they had like a parking lot that was like a garage, under-level garage. Mm-hmm. And they would throw these parties where they'd play all like, international music and like a lot of house and EDM type style stuff. but just some of the flyest women and just out there, Brazilian, from Senegal, Nigeria, Ghana, from Japan, Korea. It was just like a fly vibe. And I was noticing that like a lot of students from Japan would have these clothes that looked familiar but weren't familiar. They have these brands that I didn't know about, but I could tell from the aesthetic of the clothes that they were like influenced by like, you know, hip hop stuff, but I just wasn't familiar with it. I was familiar with everything that I knew over here, you know. I was like, no, I've never seen this before. And so like I like that aspect of the uniqueness, because when I was younger, it was all about like the names. And you use the name to stand out. So it's like you're using money for uniqueness. Like I have polo, you know, not gonna wear chaps ever.
Yeah.
You know, as I could have had a polo, you know, hell nah. You know, but you're using money to stand out.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff looked fly, but it really was more about the money, because you'd have an ugly polo sweater and like you think you're the shit. I don't know. I don't know if that's. Well, I guess I gotta go with it now. You think you're the stuff. You think that you're the stuff.
He's fine with cuss words.
Yeah, we fine with cuss words.
Okay.
I was like, why are you pausing? Why are you pausing?
You got a rapper that wants to cuss? But so, you know, like, you know, you have an ugly polo, but then someone has something really fly from a swap meet, but you wouldn't get the props that the ugly polo sweater would get just because of the name. And so when streetwear started really blowing up, you started seeing all these unique styles. Some of them became like big names like Supreme, where it's kind of like some of the same aesthetic, where it's just you put Supreme on something and everyone's gonna jock it.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that it was like unique and people were like really into like whatever they were into instead of per se going after the brand all the time, at least initially. So when I did Flock Rebel, that's what I wanted to kind of implement. I wanted to implement a streetwear brand that had the aesthetics from like the early 90s, my period. So I introduced like, you know, things that like had, you know, fake kind of streetwear cuts, but like had like the more traditional polo type lettering and things like that to kind of add that preppy type style to the streetwear. And then also I wanted to add like a lot of like different, you know, spiritual connotations. Cause to me, you know, faith and spirituality is a huge part of life.
I love that.
And I feel that like, you know, no matter what you believe, you have to believe in something so you learn how to believe in yourself. You know, and
God believe in something, so might as well believe in yourself.
Yeah, well, I think that's how you learn to believe in yourself, because I think a lot of times it's not intricate or intrinsic, I should say, in us to really believe in ourselves that way for most people. And then a lot of times when, you know, I think what you can get, and there's a lot of problems, I believe, in the way that a lot of times spirituality is actually act out in our world.
Yeah.
But at its best, I think that no matter what faith you have, one thing that's consistent is a belief outside of yourself that enables yourself.
Yeah.
And so to me, we can use that same thing for our own belief, you know, because when you have an ideal, it's not manifested, so it's outside of you, but you're using that to fuel the action you do to make it inside of you and inside the world.
Yeah.
And so like I had things that like represent like faith, hip hop, and then like the kind of preppiness, and kind of put it all together as a Flock Rebel. So that was the kind of design ideas that came with it.
I like that. And to balance that faith, this streetwear could be a reminder that reminds you of your guiding light of that principle of your faith, and that's to stay true to that.
I love that. Yes,
I like that. I need to give me some Flock Rebel clothing.
I got you, bro.
I appreciate
got you.
I always wondered the name behind that thing, but now I know. I don't do the Joe Rogan type of podcast.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that because that's just a beautiful thing to end off on. But I want you to tell the people one more time, the project, when is it coming? When they expect it? Flock Rebel, how they can connect, and give us a nice sound off. Go ahead, look at the camera, give us a nice sound off.
Definitely. Well, you know, first, I'd be remiss if I didn't give props to like the people who have made me possible. And you're definitely one of those that made me possible because, you know, just as far as like
I'm just a vessel.
You are, but seeing the vessel also is something that can help me fill my vessel. And that is like what I appreciate. The same thing with Will, all the homies, seeing what Fertz does, you know, Parker 10, MYO, Yassine, you know, Phoenix, X-Row, Chris Craft, the whole Divine Sons, and, you know, the Discreet, obviously like a big part of the foundation production wise too. It's just like seeing all this kind of stuff. It's just like amazing to me. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't give, you know, to the people who helped me do who I am. And it's so funny because like I would say that was like the big foundation. I want to say that first. And then you can get more information from any of the projects that I'm doing, from what's going on, it's almost ready. We're gonna have that come out pretty soon. Flock Rebel with the new line coming out. And then on top of that, as far as like other projects, at my Instagram at Emerald Apostle, Flock Rebel on Instagram as well. And you know, it's holler at me, holler back, get in my DMs. If you have anything you want to talk about anything, I'm always here and always want to grow. And it's just like to have a community to grow with, to kind of like be that vessel that, you know, these brothers and sisters have been for me. And yeah, I would say that's it.
I love it. Love it. Ladies and gentlemen, Odessa Oda. Y'all make sure y'all follow my guy. Big shout out to Will Maker for letting us use Will Maker Studios.
Yes, thank you.
If you need your podcast edited, you need some vocals, you need some beats, you know who to go see. Go see Will Maker. Also, not an official sponsor yet, but I'm holding space for you. Uncle Nearest, if you want to know what we were sipping on, some of the finest. The slave that taught Jack Daniels how to make whiskey, no other. He is our brother. I'm your host, Terrell Simmons. Thank you for joining another episode of Rise Urban Nation, where we're hoping that you support people who uplift our spirits and feed into the narrative of following our ancestors' wildest dreams so that we can create and grow and thrive together. That's it for this episode. We'll catch you the next time.